الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: الإيمان يماني والحكمة يماني.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu for a unusual Monday stream, something that I don't do often, but for our guest today, I've made an exception. So, as everyone knows, this is going to be the stream where Paperboy challenges the presentation that I gave on Hamza's Den, which is also on my channel, which is the presentation debunking the idea that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was deceived. So, without further ado, we'll bring up Paperboy. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here. Thank you for accepting this challenge. So I went through your presentation. I thought it was very interesting. But I think, you know, one of the key issues as well is that you brought up: was Mohammed deceived? If he was deceived, then how can we, you know, verify he was a true prophet? How do we know about the true revelation of God? So I thought it was quite good to sort of make a response to it. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
We will indeed. The thing is, it's like the reason why it intrigued me as well, because I have somewhat of a reputation of doing things completely differently to other du'at. So even this presentation, when I initially gave it, it was completely sort of left field of what people were expecting. It wasn't going down the usual sort of path of argumentation that Muslims typically present. So when you decided to challenge that, I was like, okay, fair enough. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the whole point of it, isn't it? You present something and you allow it to be challenged and see how strong the argument is, or whether it can be refuted. And that's what you're here to do. So a little bit of background, obviously. This didn't happen in the vacuum. We spoke at Speaker's Corner a couple of weeks ago. And this is why it was actually very interesting when you came to me and said, you know, I'm going to challenge your presentation on the Prophet ﷺ being deceived, because your personal belief, when I asked you, was that he lied. So it was quite interesting, because you believe that he lied, but you are trying to refute the idea that he was deceived, essentially arguing for him being deceived rather than being a liar. So that intrigued me as well. But we'll go from there. But joining us today as well is Brother Mohammed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nice to see you, brother.
Nice to see you as well. So, Brother Mohammed, of course, is here to ensure that I don't speak a lot, basically. So, you know, everyone knows in the chat that once I start, I tend to not stop because I have so much to say. So what we'll do, inshallah, is, of course, Paperboy has a presentation where he's going to attempt to refute the presentation that I've given, and we'll see how it is, inshallah. By the way, disclosure, I don't know what he's about to present. I have not seen it. This is going to be the first time I see it, so I'm unprepared, essentially, for what he has brought. So let's see what happens. He's going to have, inshallah, around half an hour to present his thing, and yeah, I'm going to be silent for the whole time. So to let him do that without interruption, and then inshallah we'll have a dialogue afterwards, after which we'll have a quick Q&A session. So inshallah we're hoping the stream to be around 2 hours in total. For the brothers and sisters in the chat, inshallah, please be respectful. No matter how silly you think the argument is, allow this to continue and critique it. At the end of the day, we are Muslims, and when we have non-Muslims on any of our channels, we want to ensure that we present the best akhlaq, okay, the best manners and character. So that's just a reminder for everyone. Paperboy, I'll bring up your presentation, and take it away.
So just like to say praise be to the triune God. And I think in terms, just a quick response to your point, whether Mohammed was deceived or whether he was liar, it could be either. We can't, even from a Christian perspective, you cannot definitively say which it was. So even if we, for example, believe that, you know, spirits exist and they can deceive people, there's not always a hard and fast way to know whether, okay, this person was lying about what they thought they had seen, or whether they had actually had a spiritual encounter. So in terms of this presentation, I'll sort of approach it in both senses, but it'll be more looking at the deception. So just so that's kind of clear beforehand. So in terms of the validity of a prophet, so I wanted to start just with a very I think a crucial assessment of how can we know if someone is actually a prophet. So this first slide is not necessarily whether he was deceived or not, but can we actually validate that person? So I've done a little syllogism, which is a logical form of reasoning where you get a conclusion from a linked premise. So as the example says, if an apple is a fruit, all fruit is good, therefore we can deduct apples are good. So in terms of this, we can see if you start, so you have a new revelation and it's presented in the 6th century to a Jew or a Christian, then we can ask ourselves the question, can only revelation come from a true prophet? And should that be accepted if it's a true prophet, their revelation from God? So if you then go to yes, then you would have to ask, is there a criteria which we can determine what a true prophet is? So if that criteria comes from a previous revelation, then we would know that it would have come from a prophetic line. So that person couldn't have been lying or deceiving. So if then we has a previous revelation been corrupted? If the answer is yes, then we would have to ask, has the revelation, has the criteria been invalidated? And if we say yes, then we would say, how then would we be able to assess if someone is a prophet? If the answer is no, then we would have to say, does that criteria validate that prophet, in this case, Mohammed? And then if we then look further into the criteria of a prophet, you can go to Deuteronomy, so forth. So if that prophet doesn't fulfill that criteria, they may be lying, they may be deceived, but then this is good reason to reject that prophet. So this is why the previous scripture is very important to identify whether the person was maybe deceived or they were a liar. So in terms of the first claim, in Al-Yemeni's presentation, he said that only true prophets know the future. So he utilized the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, where it says that the commandment of divine inspiration of Allah's messenger was in the form of good, righteous, true dreams in his sleep. So his argument was that the proof of prophethood came even before that, because he never had a dream that didn't come true. So my first contention was actually going back to the criteria in the previous revelation. So what does it say? It says, if a prophet or one who foretells dreams appears amongst you and announces to you a sign or wonder, and if that sign or wonder or spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, let us follow other gods and let us worship him, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul. So this, according to Deuteronomy, doesn't say, well, if the person has one dream that doesn't come true or not. It says, actually, within the Christian paradigm and the Judaic paradigm, someone can actually can have dreams that come true consistently. That still doesn't necessarily mean that they are from God, because God says, I allow this to test my people to see how faithful they are to me. So this is the first criteria. So whether Muhammad was deceived or was he lying, did he say, let us follow another God. This is where Muslims will dispute this. This is why Christians will have a different opinion. So when it came down to Waraqah, the second claim was we had Waraqah, who validated Muhammad, who was a learned Christian, used to write from the Injil. So he utilized the extract from Ibn Kathir where it says, Waraqah was dumbfounded by this, and he said, if Gabriel had actually placed his feet upon the earth, he had done so for the best of people thereupon, and he never came down for anyone except a prophet. Now we have a very big problem here, because if Waraqah was the one who validated that Gabriel was the person who visited him and Muhammad didn't know, well, then was the criteria that Waraqah was using a valid one? And internally and externally, we find this claim is debunked, because if we go to the Bible, it says during Elizabeth's 6th month of pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, to a town in Galilee, to a virgin. She was engaged to marry a man named Joseph from the family of David. Her name was Mary. And even in the Quran, it says, then we sent to her our angel Gabriel, appearing before her as a man perfectly formed. So now if we go back to the claim of Ibn Kathir and Waraqah, he said, and he never came down for anyone except a prophet. But Mary was not a prophet. So therefore, if his first claim is debunked or at fault, how can we then say that angel that came to visit Muhammad was actually Angel Gabriel? Because we have conflicting information here, which is both disproven by the Bible and the Quran within itself. So the question would be, now how do we validate Angel Gabriel was the actual angel that visited Muhammad? So again, we go to the hadith. It says, there came to him an angel and said, recite, to which he replied, I am not lettered. And he took hold of me and pressed me till I was hard pressed. And again, just at the bottom, we see that Waraqah was the one who validated these claims when Khadija took Muhammad to him. And then also, we go further on in the hadith, and Waraqah says, this is the same angel that Allah had sent to Moses. So he said, I wish I was young and I wish I could live to the time when your people would turn you out. So the second proposition I had is, what is the historical evidence that we have to confirm that Angel Gabriel squeezed any prophet? Because if this was something Angel Gabriel had consistently done in the past, then this would give rise to the claim that maybe it was a legitimate angel and that he wasn't deceived. So if we can't find this information, then we would have to say, well, if Muhammad was visited by something, an entity, was it actually Angel Gabriel? So we go on to a god called Haron, who's a West Semitic god. So his name is connected with the Arabic Hor, bottom of a well, cave, and could be read as a deep one. And he appears in many names across Middle Eastern literature. So the question was, we can see here that Aisha said Muhammad would go into seclusion in the cave of Hira. So could this have been the entity that deceived Muhammad? Because this is a cave god. So if people are writing about this, we may know there may be some truth to it. So this is why I'm trying to establish a case of how do we actually differentiate Muhammad, Angel Gabriel, and other deities, because the question was he deceived? So again, this is more Islamic literature. So you have Murra al-Abiyad al-Harith, and this is a jinn and he's said to be the closest to Satan in his court. His day is Monday, and he's associated with Angel Gabriel. So if we go to the Sealed Nectar, biography of the Noble Prophet, it says, as for the exact date, careful investigation into circumstantial evidence and relevant clues points directly to Monday, 21st Ramadan at night, August the 10th, which is when Muhammad received the revelation. So the reason why I brought this up is because within the Islamic narrative, they're saying, well, Muhammad was received the revelation on a Monday. And if I go back to this slide, it says that Abayad is a jinn of Monday. So if that is the day that the revelation took place, how do we know he wasn't visited by this jinn of Monday? So another claim, just moving on, was that if Shaitan overcomes a prophet or people, they usually go mad. So here I've highlighted the term is translated to mad, which means one is lured from the truth and strayed from it. So this is why I had another contention again with the claim. So if the claim was Muhammad did not go mad, so therefore he was upon the truth. But then, for example, in Sahih al-Bukhari 5765, it says magic was worked on Allah's messenger so that he used to think that he had sexual relationships with his wives when he had not. So now, to many definitions or people's understanding, this could be described as madness. If you are seeing things that did not happen, can that be defined as madness? So I would say, well, within the internal evidence, it seems that at some period he was going mad because this did not happen. So we would then say to answer the claim of, well, if he wasn't going mad, then how come he used to see things that didn't actually happen? So in terms of the fourth claim was Satan cannot oppose himself. So this is why the Quran is true and Muhammad wasn't deceived. So Al-Yemeni used the mark as an example where Jesus said, if a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. So his argument was that within the biblical narrative, that Satan cannot divide himself. So therefore, if someone's claiming to be a prophet and the Quran says, we rebuke Satan and curses Satan or whatever, that therefore Satan could not do that because his kingdom would be divided. But I think there was a major misunderstanding of the passage, and even in the presentation, I think Hamza stopped you and said, well, you should read above. So now if we read above and start from verse 20, it says, then Jesus entered the house and again a crowd gathered, so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, he is out of his mind. And the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, he is possessed by Beelzebub, by the prince of demons, and he is driving out demons. So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. So I think the very important part here was that he was actually driving out demons. So it's talking about people being possessed. So if someone is being possessed, you cannot then, the claim was he wouldn't be able to drive them out, proclaim the true God, and that they will come out, because that would then be a divided kingdom. So the misconception was that Satan, if Satan does something to deceive you, he can't do it to refute himself to deceive you. But the point of this passage was Jesus was always proclaiming the true God and casting out demons in that name. So therefore, Satan wouldn't utilize that methodology to deceive people, because he would actually then be a divided kingdom, because that would be, you can't be on the truth and on falsehood at the same time. Whereas if you're doing something on falsehood to deceive people, that is what Satan can do. So the fifth statement in your presentation was, well, what is Satan's methodology? One was you become excessive in your love for Allah, messengers or scholars that they associate partners with him. That causes a person to procrastinate, so they die in disbelief. They might fear Allah's displeasure and punishment, so they become hopeless and thereby lose faith. Or it might cause them to have excessive hope in Allah's mercy, that they feel able to sin freely, which leads to disbelief. But here's the problem. When we go back to the previous scriptures, it gives a different understanding. So if we go to Revelations 12:9, it says, the great dragon was held down,